My friends, at one time or another, we've all done things that did not make much sense. Something we might say was really stupid. And afterward, we find ourselves wondering, why did I do that? Why did I say that? And often the poor decisions we make happen because we don't listen carefully to what others are telling us, or because we're acting selfishly or impulsively. And so, my friends, if only we could always come to our senses, so to speak. Well, today's gospel is one that we've heard many times. Jesus heals the deaf man. And there is a certain wow factor that he goes with this story. Jesus sticks his finger in the man's ear. He spits on the man's tongue. Yes, spits. Then he makes that groaning sound toward heaven saying, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And the people there that day must have wondered, what is Jesus up to? Needless to say, they were astonished at what happened next. Immediately, the man's ears were opened, and his speech impediment was removed. The man could suddenly hear for the first time, and he began to speak plainly. Clearly, as the people there that day were finding out, this Jesus was no ordinary man. Well, my friends, hopefully we come away with a similar understanding. Jesus is a man. That much is true. But he is no ordinary man, for the simple fact that he is also God. And therefore, he deserves our obedience, our trust, our worship, and our love. In essence, Jesus deserves our everything, all that we have, all that we are. If Jesus could heal that man 2,000 years ago, then he can heal you and he can heal me. And so it makes perfect sense to pray for healing when we're faced with an illness or any other kind of condition that we have. Who knows? Who knows? We might just get what we pray for. And yet today's gospel is more than just a story about physical healing. Even more than a story about the fact that Jesus can perform miracles. In the gospel, we see Jesus wanting to tear down whatever obstacles are getting in the way of us being fully alive, wanting to open us up to accept and receive all the good things that he wants for us. In a certain sense, Jesus wants us to come to our senses and begin to experience our lives in a way that God intended, with purpose, with hope, with joy. And that can only happen if and when we allow Jesus to free us from whatever it is that is holding us back, to heal us from whatever it is that is wounding us, to open our eyes and ears and especially our hearts so that we can experience the world a little bit more as God does, seeing the intrinsic dignity of every person, hearing the cries of the poor, the oppressed, the neglected, sharing heartfelt kindness and understanding and hope and mercy and compassion and love with all of God's children. And yet, my friends, so often we do the opposite. So often we turn inward, seeing the world only from our point of view, hearing only what we want to hear. And so we start focusing more exclusively on our wants and our needs, our concerns, our interests. In a sense, we close ourselves off as if we were the center of the universe, as if we were all that matters. And so in doing so, we get a very distorted view of the way things really are. We get a false understanding of what God intends and desires. We get an outlook that in the end doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it is nonsense. And so Jesus wants us to break free from those restraints and to be open to new ways of thinking and seeing and hearing and acting. Jesus does not just save us for the next life. He saves us in this very time and place. He saves us from all that binds us and keeps us from being the person God created each of us to be. Listen again to these words from Isaiah from today's first reading. Here is your God. He comes to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened. The ears of the deaf will be cleared. Then will the lame leap, the mute will sing. Streams will burst forth in the desert. My friends, that's what Jesus wants for each and every one of us. A life in which we see, hear, and feel a little bit more like God does. Jesus doesn't just save us from something. He saves us for something. For a life of real purpose, real joy, and real freedom with, in, and for God. And so, as we say our prayers tonight or tomorrow or the next day, as we continue to pray for healing of every kind, physical, spiritual, emotional, let's be sure to also pray that Jesus will help each of us to be opened, thereby allowing us to live the most faithful life possible, one in which our choices are wise and the most loving we could ever make for ourselves, and most especially for others. Ephphatha, be opened. Jesus didn't just say that to the deaf man in today's gospel. He is saying it to you and to me today and every day.